Mark Rutte succeeds Jens Stoltenberg as NATO chief today. The former Dutch Prime Minister has an extensive and challenging state of issues on his plate. He's tasked with marshalling the alliance's response to Russia's war in Ukraine and easing tensions across the Middle East and Asia-Pacific. The upcoming US elections could also play a major role in shaping Mr. Rutte's tenure as Secretary General. William Denselow has more from Brussels, where NATO is headquartered.
He's known as Teflon Mark because no crisis or controversy seemingly sticks to him. As NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte's political survival skills will be put to the test as he seeks to unpick the most protracted of global conflicts.
I think he is reputed to be a consensus builder, which is obviously necessary in a system with so many competing parties. But I think beyond that, it's his international profile, actually, that makes the difference here. I mean, he's very well known. He's very well known in NATO circles.
Mark Rutte served as Dutch Prime Minister for 14 years. When asked to rate his tenure, the former high school lecturer gave himself a rating no higher than 6.5, chalking himself down over issues such as a national housing crisis. That may only be a passing grade, but there are hopes his long-standing relationships with alliance countries will help score him big political points in his new role.
For years, Mark Rutte rubbed shoulders with fellow EU leaders here at the European Council. But now a key part of his job as NATO chief will be to foster relations on both sides of the Atlantic.
The outcome of the US presidential election in November could have a significant bearing on Mr. Rutte's tenure at NATO.
I'm sure a Trump administration, if we were to have one again, would be much more critical, more difficult to deal with, press harder on issues of having Europe spend more and do more on defense.
Mr. Rutte takes over as head of the defense alliance with war at Europe's doorstep. For his predecessor, the calculation is clear.
By giving Ukraine more weapons, we can make Putin realize he cannot get what he wants by force.
It's a stance shared by the new NATO chief, who's previously called for unity and continued military support for Kyiv, particularly air defences, despite reservations from some corners of the 32-member alliance.
I don't think money is the issue here. The main issue here is to get the systems themselves. And here we are looking into our European partners, of course, the whole of NATO, but also outside NATO. So this production, it is outside NATO, within NATO.
After a decade of steady leadership under Jens Stoltenberg, a change at the top marks a new chapter for NATO. But the crises faced by the alliance that Mark Rutte now inherits are all too familiar. William Denselow, CNA, Brussels.